Hello, I thought I would give a quick tutorial on how to start modeling this wagon here that we've decided to model. This will be a great introduction to looking at images for reference, and sometimes you have a very uh, limited viewpoint. If you only have one photo of something, you don't have a lot of information about it. In Blender here, let's go Shift A, add an image. Let's just add a reference image, find it, and open it up. There it is. It comes into Blender relative to your camera position when you first are in Blender. So if you want it to come in flat, I think it might be a little bit better. Then you need to shift your camera to a flat view. Shift A, image, reference, find it again, and now you can see that it's flat to the world. Let's just move it out of the way. Let's move it over there. Let's scale it up a little bit bigger so we can kind of see what's going on. Um, what we don't know about this image, we don't know how big this wagon thing is, right? The only thing that we have to scale for reference in this is a distant door, which is probably 80 inches tall, probably 36 inches wide, but it's a little too far away. And then only other thing we have is these three people who are around this object, which is not too bad. None of them are really close to it though, which makes it a little tough, but we could always scale the object later. So we just sort of need a general reference. So let's say maybe this guy, oh, you can't see because of me. Maybe this guy is 6 feet tall, right? Maybe this guy is 6 feet tall. And if I hold my finger up to my screen, that's about, right now it's about 2 segments my finger on the screen, and if I measure across this thing, which we're presuming to be cylindrical, let's see how many of those fit. Even though it's closer to the camera than that guy is, it still will get us started. So 1, 2, 3, almost 4. You could say maybe that cylinder is 24 feet across. It could be. Why not? They're going to land that cylinder on this wagon, it looks like. I don't know what that thing is, but they're going to move it around on this wagon. So we know that roughly a 24-foot cylinder would fit onto this thing. And we also know that it is, I'm going to start with a rectangle, but it has these jutty-outy bits. It looks like on both sides. Uh, hard to say. Hard to say if it jutty-outy is on both sides. I think it does. And then narrows together, sort of a trapezoid there to this sort of thing. Looks like a hitch of some kind. We can do that all very easily if we add a plane that, let's say we're going to make it be, all right, I'm going to work in Imperial because I just am more familiar with it. And we'll do feet for now. So we're going to make this 24 feet square, this plane. We'll scale up our image just to sort of keep it in the realm. And then we know it's bigger in both directions, so we'll sort of pull. So I'll tab into edit mode, Control R for a loop cut, make 2 loop cuts, grab these 2 edges, scale them on the y-axis, and scale them on the x-axis to get our sort of shape here. Scale them on the y-axis a little bit. All right, not too bad. And since we want good topology here, this is fine, but my instincts are kind of telling me that maybe we would like to have these joined, not that, joined. So you can select 2 vertices and hit J to sort of join them across the face. And now we have the top of this thing to get started. Not too bad. There's 2 things to the thickness here. There's looks like about 2 inches of wood planking. So I'll extrude that. Set my units to, the unit system changed itself. That's so weird. Set it to inches again. Extrude 2 inches. Pretty good. And then we'll select all of these. And you know what I think I'll do? I'll just tab into object mode and duplicate this object and take it down -2 inches. That way we have a whole separate piece there. So now we have a separate piece, and let's see, let's use the gizmo here to see exactly what's going on, because I want the pivot point, the origin of that lower object, to be the top of it, so I can scale it down from the upper object. Luckily, the 3D cursor is still right there at the beginning of the world origin where we left it. So you can take any object, right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and then if I scale it on the z-axis, it'll get bigger on the z-axis in that direction. So if I pivot back around here, scale z until it looks about right. We're not modeling this for precision. If we were, we would have some data. We're modeling this for indication. Um, So we're using Google Images to get an idea, and then we might take this project in our own direction, whether it's for a game, whether it's for a film, or whatever. The reference is just an inspiration. And so if we would needed to model it really specifically, we would have a lot more data. But we're modeling this for inspiration. So already we're heading in the right direction here, I think. That looks good. Um, we can see that there's a hole on the end of this thing. There's like an opening in the beamage there where there's a little bit of uh, mounting hardware for the hitch out here. We can find a way to make that cut in. Looks like it cuts in here somewhere. So I did Control R loop cut and then moved it over. And I think we're going to want to do two loop cuts, but we'll just do them one at a time because we're going to want to sort of carefully control their positioning so that we can get in there. Probably it's the same on this side as well, most likely. And we can check and see if these two are lined up by doing a specific view. There we go, and turning on wireframe. Oh, I'm not quite on the right view. I think we're gonna have to get an object mode and hide this picture. It's in our way. Okay, so you can see that they are not quite lined up. We can select this one, tab into edit mode, Alt. Holding Alt and clicking will get you to select a loop cut. I'll just slide this one until they are very lined. So double G will let you slide a loop cut. Now they are very aligned. We can grab, back in the solid mode, we can grab these faces. What should we do? Should we extrude them on that axis? We gotta pull the, I think that was very effective, but let's pull the reference back up. H will hide something and Alt H will bring it back when you're in object mode. As far as we know, uh, this is correct because we can't see anything else in there. So maybe it's good. Looks like maybe there's a little bit of a vertical member in there. So let's just back up, Control Z. We can put a loop cut going in this direction, select it, Control B to bevel it. We'll get that vertical member back. That way, if we extrude these faces on that axis, we still get to keep that little bit of something in there that looks pretty good. All right, now we will get into modeling the wheels and stuff for this. I think I'll just come under here and shift right click will move the 3D cursor. I think I'm just going to put a plane in there, scale that down. I'm going to make all of this up um, just based on like the apparent size of it. It's going to be very freeform. So extrude. I'm sure there's a little mounting plate. It looks like I see some bolts there. Then I'm going to inset. Very hard to see. I want to model from under here. Yeah, inset that guy and bevel. Oh, that's not really doing it. Full Shift B to bevel. Yeah, that's giving us those rounded corners. We can get some more segments in there. Let's scale that down. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to extrude that down, scale it, move it on the x-axis, rotate it on the y-axis, scale it down. I mean, it looks like it does something like that, which is quite strange. But as far as we know from that picture, some kind of strange thing like that is happening. Right, that's what I can tell. Let me move the picture a little bit closer. You just can't really see, even from this other wheel over here, something like that is happening. I'm not sure which, but we know that whatever it is, this thing needs to terminate in some sort of mount for the axle, because the axle going through these two wheels, um, is a continuous piece that's holding up all the weight of this thing. So from what I can see from behind, it's hollow on the back. I think maybe it splits into two pieces that have some hardware on either side. What if I left myself here for a back bit? Not a lot. I think I'm going to select these, scale them on the y-axis. There we go. I'm going to delete these faces. Okay. And I'm going to just close these down manually. So selecting these edges and hitting face. Nah, I'm not going to do that. Delete that face. Selecting these edges and hitting face. That would have been the same thing. Okay. So I'm going to close this all down. Select this loop here. Close that. Face. Great. So now we've got like some pieces here. I think maybe a loop cut in this direction will let me do this. And we're making all this up, but we know for sure that it's open in the center and that if you look on this wheel, you can see in the back, it's open in the center, which means it splits into two bits that sort of are on either side, kind of facing out against those wheels. So this is probably not a bad sort of representation of what that must be like. All right. Also, you can see that there's this sticky outy bit here that's probably like in the center coming off of the wheels and sandwiched between this little piece. Let's go ahead and sort of make the wheel as a separate object, and then we can work on that relationship. So I want to add the wheel relative to the center of this thing. So selecting these two faces right here, Shift S, cursor to selection. Whoa, no. Shift S, cursor to selected. There we go, puts that cursor right in the middle there. So if I go back into object mode and add a cylinder, there it is, RX90. Pretty good, good. Let's see. That can be wide enough for both of them, probably. How much wider does it come at? Scale, Y. Kind of like that. Tab, two loop cuts. Select that with Alt, scale Y. Let's go to wireframe mode so we can see what's going on here, because we want to scale this exactly so that those wheels basically come right up to the edge of that thing. Let's delete those faces, go back to solid mode. Now we've got some wheels here that need faces on the inside because we deleted their friends. There we go. Not too bad. This thing is not helping us anymore. Let's see if we can edit that. Can I get a loop cut in there? Heck yes, I can. Scale Z0. I think that was unnecessary. Let's keep it like that. Scale that on the Y. not do that. Let's do that from a fixed view so we know what's going on. Scale Y. Scale Y. There we go. GG to slide the loop cut. Okay. Very interesting. Highly unique. All right, cool. And since we're in the same place here, let's just add another cylinder that will be the axle. And let's scale that on the Y. And let's scale it. Shift Y will be everything but the Y, so make it be axle sized. Very cool. Scale it on the Y again. Great. Now we can take all these faces, sort of do the same thing to them so that they look like wheels. First of all, we got them all selected. Let's inset them. So maybe that's how thick that first bit of tire is. It looks like there's an internal ridge in the tire. It looks like there's two little bits. So Alt E, extrude faces along normal. Let's jump that in right there. Alt E, I. There's like a lip right there. Alt E. I. There's a lip right there in the yellow for the first one. Alt E. I. E. There's like a little lip right there. It's very hard to see. I. Alt E. Yeah, okay, so that's not bad. So now we've got our wheels here. Very decent. It'll be fine. Looking good. Cool. We can keep going with this. We could like come in here and make that little sticky outy bit. There's tons of detailing. There's bolts. Let's put some bolts. Let's just add a little bolt detail and then we'll let go from here. If we need more detail later, we'll come back and add it. And then let's sort of put them around in some sort of sensible manner. We can use the Z controls to look at it from below and sort of put it right on the corner of that metal plate. Shift D will duplicate it, and let's move it only on the Y. Shift D duplicate X. Shift D duplicate Y. These won't be perfectly centered, but nobody's going to check because it's not about that. We're not going to manufacture this thing. We're just going to have it appear in related media. Cool. This is like what you would do, for film or animation or something where there's no engineering aspects to this, right? It's just, hey, that looks like that thing. It serves the same purpose in this animation. Really good. That is probably fine for right now. We can always like subdivide these wheels. We could have made them higher resolution. You can always see what's going to happen if you do shade auto smooth. Yeah, that's better. I think actually doing that showed me that what I really need to do is like grab the tire edges and give them a little bit of a bevel, which will just soften that ever so slightly. So Control B. Yeah, that's great. All right, cool. So that works. We may as well just make that. We should at least combine these silly bolts or rivets with the top plate and then consider whether we're going to keep the wheels separately in order to animate them. But let's make sure we don't have too many pieces here. Yeah, okay, that's fine. For now, we'll add them. We'll combine them. Control J. That way we can always come back and can always come back and separate them out. All right, let's use a quick mirror modifier to get these bad boys mirrored on this object. Since we modeled this based on the center of the world origin, where X and Y meet, we can hit Shift S, cursor to world origin, Shift A, add an empty plane axes, scale that up, then apply it, Control A, all transforms. Probably don't have to do that. Let's just select the wheel, the blue wrench, mirror, add a mirror modifier, and reference that empty by getting the eyedropper and selecting it. Now you can see it mirrored it about that empty on the x-axis. Blender's weird in how you would think if it was mirroring it on the x-axis, it would have crossed the x-axis, but it does it in the direction of. In this case, we want to do it in both directions, just like that. Totally fine. So we'll apply that. Now we've got 4 wheel bits that we could separate or animate or whatever we want later, but for now we are doing good. We'll probably model the hitch the same sort of a way. We'll come in here and we'll add a cylinder, scale it down, put it in place. Because I see there's like a little cylinder in there. So from the perspective of the picture, can I see that cylinder? I should be able to. Seems about right. And it's got some cutouts of its own. And we will face that up. Yeah, not quite the thing, but we are hurting for information here. We're starved for information, so we'll call it good like that. Okay, so basically that sticky outy bit sticks out. Let's see if this whole thing is yay long. You can use the N key to bring up this menu to tell you the dimensions of things. Let's take the units back to feet for a second. Feet, X, the whole thing is 35 feet. 24, 4 or 5 feet here, so that would make this like 10 feet long probably. We can come in here and add the cylinder, rotate it, can make its Z. Is that gonna change its own Z? It did. And then we'll make this be, 4 inches. Great. Grab Z, and if you double tap Z, instead of moving it on the Z axis, it'll move it on its own Z axis, right? Because we rotated it. It still has local origins of its own. I'm going to set that point where we added it as its origin. So right click, set origin to 3D cursor. That way we can scale it on the Z axis. And we can sort of rotate it on that, or the real Z axis as well. Okay. Starting to head in the right direction, I think. Maybe it's more like this. So we'll move our thing. There we go. pretty clear that we need another little cylinder in here to be the axle for this object. It must pivot on some sort of a pin that is centered on this thing. This is a gross approximation of what's happening there, but based on what we can see, it's something like that. That's cool. And if let's make this, so cursor to selected, let's make that position the origin point of this brace. So right click, set origin to 3D cursor. That way, when we pivot it, its relationship will stay the same. All right, 7 on your full-size keyboard number pad will let you go directly above for a view. I'll just have the corner of this meet that, and that way when we combine all these three things, Control J, and we mirror them off of that same empty on the y-axis, we'll get two that sort of jut out like that. Not too bad, looking pretty good. They appear to come together and meet in front of a torus. Oh, in object mode, let's apply our modifier. Select these faces. Shift S, cursor to selected. Shift A, oh, and let's add a separate object just for now. Shift A, mesh, torus, graphics, scale, scale. Very hard to see. Kind of a not the best photo in the world. I think what I'll do, I want to make this torus a little thicker. Down here in the bottom left, you'll get all kinds of settings. But once you start scaling the thing and moving it, you'll lose those settings. Yeah, this is more correct. There we go. More correct. Sweet. All right. Let's put some loop cuts in here. Cool. I'm going to duplicate this ring, move it not on the z-axis, rotate it around. It's not going to work because it's always going to be a weird rotation. Cursor to selected, Shift A, cylinder. That's 90. Scale Y down. Grab X, scale Y. There we go. How'd I do on the radius of that? Not too bad. All right, that's a start. Probably another one of these right in here, it looks like. Let me just make these, oh, are they part of that? L to select all, P selection, that makes it a separate object because I want them to be part of this. Edit, L, GX, right where I put that loop cut basically. I know that there's another one of these. That's just how these kinds of things work. Scale it on the y-axis. Alrighty. And there's like a flat face on top of this thing. Let's see if we can make that without too much trouble. 1 to go into vertex mode. I think that vertex and that vertex are on top. And is there a center? No. How are we going to get that? Let's bring the torus into this object as well. And we'll select, oh, let's say that one and that one and that one. Face them with F. That'll just give us something that we can work with. I'll select that, P, selection, make it separate. Now it's its own object. Select this, Control B to bevel. That didn't do it, really. Control Shift B. There we go. And I'll roll my mouse to increase the segments. Scale that on the Y, X. Probably what this is in reality is like a little plate of steel that sits there and is welded onto all of this that holds it all in place. And so that will give us that sort of look to it right there. We just need to sort of replicate these, this X here. It won't scale on its local axis anymore because it came off of this thing, which doesn't have that anymore, but I can double tap G to slide its edges along its own directionality there. Alrighty, let's make it a, so tap L to select all those faces. Let's make it a separate object by hitting P, and that way we can mirror it off of that same empty on the y-axis and not the x. And that should look a lot like it. So I think that's enough for now. This tutorial has gone on a little long. We could always come back and put these sort of like these wheel supports of the hitch in there. We can add the step onto. But if you can get this far, then you will have done a lot. And this is a good base model for this thing. So in another video, I will finish it up and create a material, and we'll go from there. Make sure to save, and I will see you next time.